Liam, always an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. So first, they came for Nigel Farage. Now they're going for the everyday businessman and woman in the street. Absolute outrage. What's the details?
Good to be with you, Martin. Also, as ever, a new word has entered the English lexicon, hasn't it? To be debanked. That's not Cockney rhyming slang. That's when your banking services are removed. And you mentioned our colleague Nigel Farage, and of course, Coutts, the very upmarket bank owned by NatWest, indeed took away Nigel's accounts. He complained about it. He did a freedom of information request. It turned out that Coutts insiders had been putting together dossiers saying that they didn't like the cut of Nigel Farage's political jib and they didn't want him involved with their company. Nigel appealed with attitude, I think we can say, and of course NatWest had to stand aside and the chief executive lost her job. What we're talking about today is slightly different. It's when individual companies, small and medium-sized enterprises, are debanked, their banking services taken away. Not so much because they may be seen as politically distasteful to certain bureaucrats working facelessly in our financial services industries, or because they may be what's called a PEP, a politically exposed person, but just because they're too small for the banks to be bothered with, frankly. That's the danger. That's what the Treasury Select Committee, a group of cross-party MPs doing good work who are members of the Parliament who are particularly interested in economic and business issues. I know many of them well. They are investigating this issue of small and medium-sized enterprises being debanked, and they have used their good offices, their power to extract data and call witnesses. And they've come up with these numbers that over the last year, around 3 to 5% of bank accounts of small and medium-sized enterprises have been shut down. Almost 150,000 in a particular year, as you say, Martin, which is a huge amount. And it's just because the banks feel, they wouldn't admit this, that these small businesses aren't worth the candle. But you know what? Small businesses, they account for 2/3 of all jobs in this country. They account for half of the UK economy. They are the lifeblood of many local and regional economies, big employers. They are very, very important to our entrepreneurial business culture and indeed the future of UK economic growth. And have a look at this for a statement from Martin McTague. Martin, your namesake. He is national chair at the Federation of Small Businesses, an extremely well-regarded, long-standing lobby group. There is a power imbalance, says the Federation of Small Businesses, between small firms and their banks. Those who've had their accounts closed without warning, see, we're not making this up, are not just affected financially and operationally, but there's also a reputational and emotional aspect to consider. Banks should not be making decisions lightly or on a hair trigger. Imagine, Martin, that you are running a small or medium-sized enterprise. Imagine you've got 20, 30 odd employees. You've got to make payroll every month. We here in Britain, we are very good at starting small firms. It's what we do. We're not very good at those small firms becoming big firms. And a lot of the reason is because the financial services industry, in my experience, doesn't like funding small firms. It doesn't like dealing with small firms. The rooty-tooty people in the city think that small firms are a little bit naff, in my experience. And, of course, regional banking, that is largely dying away as our banks retrench and focus more on investment banking activities rather than, you know, utility, providing the plumbing of the financial services industry. And we've got a situation now where a lot of our small companies are losing bank accounts very, very quickly against their wishes. So imagine, you've got people you need to pay. You've got suppliers who you need to pay. You've got people paying you who have got your banking details. You know, many, many standing orders set up. Imagine that happening in your own personal life, the stress and the aggro. And then imagine that you've got 30 employees as well, and them being paid and your business is turning over will determine whether or not your family gets fed and you can keep a roof over their head. I personally think Martin McTague of the Federation of Small Businesses has been incredibly understated when he talks about the emotional aspects to this. I think they're absolutely huge.
Yeah, superb. Liam Halligan, thanks again for shining a light on this. Always on the money, eh? And you're a big lad. I wouldn't fancy you turning up at my bank to sort them out. Well done, mate. Always a pleasure.